So it's day 19 of Ellen's keynote study streak, and we have covered many remedies so far, which are related to the previous day's remedy. And it's been an exciting learning, at least for me. I don't know about the audience. You can give your feedback to my videos, or you can drop it in the comments. But what is interesting is that uh, it's important that we study materia medica every day and make a habit. So good evening, Dr. Rishabh, and we have some usual people who regularly join: Dr. Purvi, Dr. Akhtar from Pakistan, and I think on YouTube also we have a few people very soon. So let's start with day 19 remedies, and we'll have the remedy ignatia. So yesterday we studied about something about causticum and much about gelsemium also. And in gelsemium we saw this interesting fact about getting ailments from or aggravated by emotions. So that is a very important component, and often in clinics when patients come to us, we tend to miss it out because patients don't know that the physical disease has originated from their mental thought patterns. But if you are a keen observer, you will be able to spot it very easily. So in the remedy ignatia, we'll be able to understand how to go from physical to mentals and try to confirm, because patients will always and always and always land up in your clinic with physical complaints. They will never trace it back to mental trauma, mental history, or mental thought patterns. But it is our job to find it out from the patient, from the relatives, from the history, and just confirm whether this exists, whatever is there in the remedy. So someone named Homeocare, I don't know your name, so I also wave you a hi on YouTube. So let's begin with remedy ignatia on day 19 of Ellen's keynote study streak. Bad effects of anger, grief, or disappointed love. Other remedies mentioned are calcarea phos and hyoscyamus. Broods in solitude over imaginary trouble. Especially suited to nervous temperament, women of a sensitive nature, easily excited nature, dark hair, skin, but mild disposition, quick to perceive, rapid in execution. So, when you read these lines, you should understand the nature of the person at least 60 to 70%. And what it says is that someone who is of a mild disposition, so she can get to tears, get to emotions very soon. Quick to perceive means whatever is told to her, whatever is conveyed to her, she takes it very strongly. Rapid in execution, she'll bring out her emotions, the reactions very soon. On the contrary, in pulsatilla, we have someone who is of a fair complexion, who is yielding. So they will yield. Yielding means that many times we ask patients about their history and they go on sharing about it in a very mild temperament, in an easygoing nature, not too fast, not too slow, and they share it from their own what do you say, curiosity of sharing, or of their own nature of sharing, and this becomes yielding. They yield to our questions very easily, and they are of a lachrymose temperament and slow and indecisive. So we see this in pulsatilla, whereas we see someone who is quick to act, quick to perceive, rapid in execution in ignatia. So you should understand that this remedy will belong to someone who gives you examples of how quick and efficient they are and how they wear their emotions on the sleeve. So, hello, Dr. Jagdeep from Punjab. Glad to see you here. And you can go through all the previous videos about the Allen's keynote study streak and keep a streak of learning the materia medica. I hope you are already doing that, or if you are not, then you should definitely develop a habit. So, in the remedy ignatia from Allen's keynotes, we have mental conditions rapidly in an almost incredible short time change from joy to sorrow, from laughing to weeping. And then there are three remedies mentioned: Porphyria, Crocus, Nux Moschata, and then there is a semicolon and mentioned moody. So, when we ask patients, how is your nature? How moody are you? 50% may tell you the truth, 50% may not tell you the truth. If there is a relative who has come with the patient, ask them also about the nature. Only then you will be able to understand whether they have a rapid change of mood, quick change of mood from joy to sorrow, sorrow to joy, laughing to weeping, etc., etc. Or else you will miss out on these points in your clinic, and you will miss out on prescribing ignatia. So then we have persons mentally and physically exhausted by long concentrated grief. And what are we taught in our medical schools? Someone who has acute grief, go for ignatia. It can also be from long standing grief. But what is the important word over here? The important word, and you have to understand that the important word is concentrated. There is a long concentrated grief. What does concentrated mean? It means that they are focusing on that one point again and again, focusing and thinking about that. There is nothing else left in the world except about thinking about that particular grief, that particular point. Go back to the first line and read about ignatia again. Broods in solitude over imaginary trouble. So you have someone who is brooding, who is going in loneliness, who is brooding and loneliness and thinking about an imaginary trouble which does not exist. And it can be also be a person who is having a long concentrated grief, someone who is thinking about one subject only, one topic only, one trauma only all the time. And when you track the entire history of the patient, you see that there was only one trauma in the case. There were not multiple issues, but there was one trauma which was so big enough that it catapulted the physical body into developing an illness. I'll give you a very nice tip, and this really comes from my own experience about handling these patients. Patients will report to you with physical problems, right? And it will be difficult for us to ask them, okay, what started it? See, there is a gap when the mental thought pattern manifests itself on the physical body. It can take 2 days, it can take 2 months, it can take 2 years. But if it is there in the history of the patient, you can finally understand, or it's a subtle understanding, that it was in the functional stages when the thought pattern was developing, when the mental trauma was impacting the physical body, and then it started reflecting in the form of symptoms which were big enough to manifest on the physical body. So there is a latent phase. You should understand that. Once you understand that latent phase, your job will become very easier in clinics. So patients will report to you with physical complaints, but when you will track back their history, they'll tell you that there was a point of time where I was affected by this particular trauma. patient may not know and patient may not tell you that it started from that trauma, but if you understand and if you probably ask the patient about what was the uh, what were the symptoms in that period, chances are, if it is ignatia, chances are that you will get to know from the patient that I kept on thinking about that particular trauma in that particular 6 to 8 months, 1 year, or 2 years. And that is where it corroborates what is written in Allen's keynotes: mentally and physically exhausted by long concentrated grief. This, whatever I explained you right now, will also come in few more lines down the track, so stay tuned. Desire to be alone. Then we have finely sensitive mood, delicate consciousness. Then we have in Allen's keynotes for Ignatia, inconstant, impatient, irresolute, quarrelsome. Then we have amiable indisposition, if feeling well, but easily disturbed by slightest emotion, easily offended. The slightest fault finding or contradiction excites anger, and this makes him angry with himself. Children, when reprimanded, scolded, or sent to bed, get sick and or have convulsions in sleep. And the last line before I give my explanations: ill effects from bad news, from vexation, with reserved displeasure, from suppressed mental sufferings of shame and mortification, other remedy being Stafford's idea. So in today's age, where we have teachers scolding students in school, parents scolding children at home, after a few days, when the scolding gets repeated on the child's mind, it manifests in the physical body. Once it starts manifesting on the physical body, they will report to you with complaints of pain, they will report to you with complaints of headache, they will report to you with pain in the legs, pain in the abdomen, etc. etc. This is called as psychosomatic pain, and the remedy Ignatia will do beautiful in such cases, because one thing is long concentrated grief, another thing is broods in solitude, another thing is broods over that particular subject, and you see the symptom, which is children when reprimanded or scolded or sent to bed get sick or have convulsions in sleep. So get sick means it can be anything. It can also be fever, it can also be cough, it can also be respiratory distress, it can be asthma, it can be physical pain in the body, it can be headache. So many children who land up in your clinic with vague symptoms, you cannot diagnose, you cannot understand what is the diagnosis. It is actually psychosomatic in nature. You may get some deeper acting constitutional polycrest indicated at that moment, but think about Ignatia as a constitution, as an intercurrent, as a push to the patient's vitality towards the positive side, and you will be happy more than enough. So next we have the remedy of great contradictions. Roaring in the ears is better by music. Now, once it is written remedy of great contradictions, you have to understand that there will be something which is exactly opposite to what is said. There is some roaring in the ears, better by music. The piles are better when walking. Sore throat feels better when swallowing. Empty feeling in the stomach is not better by eating. Cough, there is a beautiful rubric of cough, and it goes like Kent repertory. If you open coughing, cough aggravates, Kent repertory, cough constant, you will see Ignatia in it. So it comes from this particular symptom in the materia medica, which says that it gets aggravated by the same modality, which rather it should ameliorate, but it gets aggravated. So you have cough aggravated the more he coughs, cough on standing still during a walk, spasmodic laughter from grief. So you have some patients who are, when you ask them the history, can you tell me when do you get angry? You'll see them laughing, and that laugh comes from this nature of laughing on serious subjects or laughing immoderately whenever we are conversing with the physician. It can also be in the middle of the case where they are sharing about their history and they are just giving out a laugh, a few bouts of laugh without you even asking them or noticing them. So these are the subtle observations. It does not necessarily mean that patient will come and tell you that I laugh on serious subjects, I laugh on when I have to share my serious complaints, or I laugh immoderately. But you need to catch these subtle things from your observation. I have taken lectures earlier in this year, beginning of the year, on case taking, and in probing the mind I have covered extensively about what you need to do when you take the case and when you are observing the patient. So if you all want the recordings, they will be available. You can drop a message and you will get it. But going further, we have something that is spasmodic laughter from grief, sexual desire with impotency. This is very important. Sexual desire, strong sexual desire, but there is impotency. Thirst during a chill and no thirst in the fever. Color of the face changes when the patient is resting. Then we have a symptom, involuntary sighing, and this can be a very good observation from the physician rather than something that the patient will tell you. Other remedy mentioned is lachesis. Then we have the symptom, cannot bear tobacco, smoking or being in tobacco smoke produces or aggravates headache. You can get this very easily in your practice. Sweat on the face on a small spot while eating. Oversensitiveness to pain, coffea and chamomilla are the other two remedies. Pain in small and circumscribed spots, circular spots, and complaints that return precisely at the same hour. So what I want to tell you is that whatever symptoms are mentioned now over here, whatever we read, these are the confirmatory symptoms of ignatia on the physical level. So consider you have a patient who gives you a lot of complaints about this is happening, that is happening, and you are not able to decide about the remedy. She is a very mild, timid lady. She is yielding very easily. She is also crying. Then she got silent. Then she shared about her history. But somewhere you feel that, should I give pulsatilla? Should I give ignatia? Should I give? Or ignatia is not there in your mind, and you will probably think about Lyco, you will probably think about Kalika because she is talking about family all the time. But when you go in the physical generals, you will get one symptom which will point towards ignatia, and that physical general is going to unlock your entire case. It can be the sweat on a small spot, probably nose. There is a single remedy in boric which says that perspiration is only on the upper lip while eating. Single remedy in boric, the remedy is ignatia. So it can be on the forehead, it can be on the cheeks, or only on the face, or on a small spot anywhere in the body or on the face, especially while eating. Or there will be spotty pains in the patient. It can be rheumatic pains, it can be headache, it can be migraine, something like that. And that is where you can lead yourself from the physical generals or physical particulars into the remedy, because the mentals are so elaborate and so broad that you will land up thinking about 5 to 7 polychrist remedies. If you want to confirm your patient's remedy, you will have to rely on these physical particulars, physical generals. Headache, as if a nail was driven through the side and the patient is relieved by lying on it. The other remedies being Coffea, Nux vomica, Thuja. In the while talking or chewing, probably the patient bites the inside of the cheek very often. Weak, empty feeling at the pit of stomach, not better by eating. The other two remedies mentioned are hydrastis and sepia. Constipation from carriage riding of a paralytic origin with excessive urging felt more in the upper abdomen. So there will be some discomfort in the upper abdomen. With great pain, dreads to go to the closet, and constipation especially in women who are habitual coffee drinkers. Prolapsus ani from moderate straining at stool, stooping or lifting like nitric acid, podophyllum rota. And when you check with the patient about the consistency of the stool, in all cases of hemorrhoids, in all cases of piles, which is the same actually, in all cases of constipation, in all cases of gastric discomfort, try to ask the consistency of the stool. If the stool is loose yet there is lot of discomfort in the abdomen, think about Ignatia as a remedy. If the stools are slender, we read about the remedy which we discussed recently, phosphorus. So patient suffers from, there is a long slender stool or loose diarrhea like stool in the patient's symptomatology. Then we have something that is hemorrhoids and prolapse with every stool have to be replaced. They have to put it inside by themselves. And there are sharp stitches which shoot up the rectum. This is like nitric acid, and also it continues for several hours. So all those patients who have hemorrhoids, who have pain for a long time, and you are thinking of giving nitric acid, think about Ignatia also. In fact, if you try to understand the pathophysiology of hemorrhoids, it is something that is concentrated on one part, one single spot over there. And I have given Ignatia to innumerable cases and have got excellent results. It can serve as an intercurrent. Nash says that all the remedies in the Materia Medica can serve as an intercurrent. There is no need to think only of the polychrist remedies or the antimiasmatic remedies as intercurrent. You can have any remedy working as an intercurrent provided the symptoms match. Other remedies for hemorrhoids are retania and sulfur, which also have pain that continues after the stool for long hours. Twitchings and jerkings, even spasms of single limbs or whole body when falling asleep. So this is very important. You will see children who have single leg movement, single hand movement going on in the sleep. Those are the cases that will need Ignatia. They are not going towards convulsions, they are not going towards epileptic seizures, but they somewhere have been reprimanded, they have somewhere been victims of shouts from teachers, parents, which they felt bad themselves due to their own behavior, and they feel guilt, they feel remorse, they curse themselves, or the repetition of the reprimand brings them these movements, twitchings of single parts, especially in sleep. Then we have fever, which is especially with the red face during the chill. So there will be flushes, especially not exactly the redness, but there will be surging of the blood. The same we see in ferrum also. Then we have chill with thirst during chill only. This is very specific. Now for that we need to understand from the fever point of view, but over here it's just these lines which I will be reading. Better by external heat and heat without thirst, aggravated by covering. So whenever the patient takes covering, he may not feel better and he throws it off. So we need to ask the patient to confirm whether you feel comfortable with the covering or you don't feel comfortable, and that is where you can decide ignatia and nux vomica. And then we have something that Herring has written, that ignatia is more suited to women and nux vomica more to men. We know that very well, but he says that in North America there are more ignatia persons than nux persons. This was like say 100 years ago or 150 years ago. The scene may have changed right now, so it depends from era to era. For ignatia, modalities mentioned are tobacco, coffee, brandy, contact, motion, strong odors, mental emotions and grief. More or less the same modalities that we saw in gelsemium as well. Then we have amelioration from warmth, hard pressure, like China, amelioration from swallowing, amelioration from walking. We also have in relations, there is incompatibility of coffea, nux vomica and tabacum with ignatia. And if there are bad effects of ignatia, or if you have given ignatia to a patient and you feel that this remedy probably is doing too much of work excessively, then you can think of the remedy pulsatilla, which is the next remedy that we will be discussing. So let's open pulsatilla from Allen's keynotes, and it is adapted to persons of indecisive, slow, phlegmatic temperament, sandy hair, blue eyes, pale face, easily moved to laughter or tears, affectionate, mild, gentle, timid, yielding disposition, and the woman's remedy. So you can say that kind of 60 to 70% of women, or at least the 50% may need this remedy. Let's see how. Especially in diseases of women and children. Women who are inclined to be fleshy with scanty and protracted menstruation. I was about to tell you that the remedy we should think on similar levels is graphitis, and it is mentioned very clearly over here in bracket. Weeps easily, almost impossible to detail her ailments without weeping. This is also there in one of the remedies which we discussed. In the last 19 days, there is a remedy which we discussed, which also has weeping when sharing about the symptoms. If you are a good student of Allen's keynotes, if you are a good student of the Allen's keynotes study streak in the last 19 days, probably you will catch this remedy. Drop in the comments and we'll proceed further. If the patient weeps when we are telling or talking about them or telling them something good, they will start weeping. Remedies like lycopodium. The first serious impairment of health is referred to pubertic age, and patient has never well since. Like it can be since puberty, since anemia, since chest infection, since some or the other infectious disease, just like carbovage. And we see that secretions from all the mucous membranes are thick, bland, yellowish green. The remedies being kali sulf and natrum sulf. Now the symptoms in pulsatilla we all know are ever changing. No two chills are similar, no two stools are similar. So one day it will be hard, one day it will be soft, one day it will be hard then soft. Okay, the same day. Some days it will be watery, and this the patient can tell you very easily. I have confirmed many times. And they are good at 1 hour, and the other hour they are very bad, apparently very contradictory, just like the remedy ignatia. But this is for the symptoms. For the behavior, there can be an alternating state, but still they are very much yielding. So there is a very fine and subtle differentiation, and then that is what I told you, that you will have to go on the physical level, physical generals, physical particulars and try to confirm whether there are spotty pains, wandering pains, perspiration in a single part, which the Ignatia remedy will tell, or something else which pulsatilla will tell. Pains in pulsatilla are drawing, there is a kind of a pulling from within, tearing, erratic. Erratic means it can come anytime, suddenly, rapidly shifting from one part to another, like the remedies Calibicromicum, Laccan, Manganum. And they are also having with the pains constant chilliness. More the pain, more the chilliness. And especially one of the beautiful things, if you are a good student of Materia Medica, and you have to be calm, because this is going to be a very important diagnosis for you for differentiating pulsatilla from other remedies in your clinic. The symptom goes something like this. The complaints or the pains appear suddenly, but they leave off very gradually. So if you go to boric, I have used it extensively in the initial days of practice, and almost 80 to 90% of the remedies and the rubrics are memorized, because when you don't have a computer repertory, you need to memorize the repertory, you need to memorize the Materia Medica, and today's age is different. So that is why we have someone who is, we are clinging to the system all the time. So we go to this rubric, the group of rubrics in boric, which tell you about symptoms or complaints. You go in generalities, complaints, and there is a rubric which says complaints appear, and then we have all the sub rubrics which will give you complaints appear atypically, complaints appear gradually, go gradually, complaints appear suddenly and go gradually. Pulsatilla is mentioned in that rubric. And there is also something which is also like rust talks, that the pain starts suddenly, goes to a peak, and then suddenly it will stop. Lets up with a snap. This is mentioned. Although mostly you will be seeing that it will go gradually, or the pains get better gradually. Then we have something which is thirstlessness with nearly all the complaints. Now, one of the very interesting things is that in pulsatilla, and this is a very valuable confirmatory symptom for you all in acutes. People prescribe wrong remedies in acutes because they don't know what should be the therapeutic pointers. And for each remedy, you should make some therapeutic pointers which are going to aid you to prescribe a remedy. For example, in pulsatilla, there is lot of dryness in the mouth and no thirst. Patient may tell you about no thirst, but it is your job to confirm whether there is dryness in the mouth. He may not tell that there is dryness of the mouth. He will tell you about thirst because you have asked about thirst. Similarly, for Merksol, we will have that their mouth is moist and there will be intense thirst. Now, when you will ask the patient that how good is your thirst, the patient will tell very good thirst. And if you examine the mouth, you will see the tongue is moist, there is lot of saliva. So there you have the confirmatory symptom by your observation itself. Patient may or may not have the excess saliva feeling, but if you see the mouth moist, excess of saliva, droplets of saliva existing, think of Merksol. If there is dryness of mouth, which may be subjectively also found, and without thirst, think of pulsatilla, think of Nux moscata. Then we have the symptom mumps, metastasis to mammary or testicle. Then we have the symptom sleep, wide awake in the evening, does not want to go to bed. First sleep is restless, sound sleep when it is time to get up. Awakes languid, unrefreshed. This is the reverse of Nux vomica. So you have many patients, especially the children, who don't go to bed very soon. And when it is time to get up, they are not so, ready to get up. And most of the cases will fit into pulsatilla. If the children wake up crying, the top remedy that you should give is lycopodium. It works beyond any benefit of doubt. There is no benefit of doubt for this remedy. Think about lycopodium in cases where the child wakes up crying, and if the child is waking unrefreshed, languid, or he is more sleepy in the early part of the morning when it is time to actually wake up, think of the remedy pulsatilla. Then there is a symptom which is very interesting, and it will be subjectively told by the patient: nervousness which is intensely felt about in the ankles. Then there are styes, a very popular remedy which all of us are giving. Styes especially on the upper eyelids from eating fat, greasy, rich food or pork, and you have to compare it also with lycopodium and staphylococcus aureus. Then there is toothache which is relieved by holding cold water in the mouth. Bryonia, coffee are the other remedies. Worse from warm things and the heat of the room. Interestingly, pulsatilla also has a symptom on the respiratory level, which is unable to breathe well or is chilly in the warm room. There are a lot of gastric difficulties from eating rich food, cake, pastry, especially after pork or sausage. The sight or even the thought of pork causes disgust, bad taste in the morning, all gone sensation in the stomach, especially in the tea drinkers. So, patients who are having most of the bakery products, I would rank two remedies which are of importance. One remedy is Ipecac. For me, it is Ipecac. It will have a lot of complaints of the gastric sphere, especially in the umbilical region. The second remedy of importance I would give is pulsatilla. So why Ipecac? Because if you go and read Ipecac symptomatology, and it's a very short acting remedy, so you need to understand that this patient has some ailments near the navel. Go in abdomen, boric, you will see some symptoms about pain around the umbilicus, and complaints from eating those pastries and bread and cakes and all those stuff. And there will be some gastric symptoms which are maybe related to nausea or vomiting. In pulsatilla, we'll have all gone sensation, which is like an empty feeling, and also it will be having the same causative factor which we have for Ipecac as well, which is from eating those pastries and cakes and those fast food items, or it will mostly be the bakery items. Then we have the symptom which is diarrhea only or usually at night. So we discussed one of the very interesting remedies in the last 19 days about diarrhea only in the night, and the audience has to tell me, okay, in the last 19 days from the Allen's keynotes, which is the remedy which we discussed for diarrhea only at night. Now see, there are two questions I have already asked. One question was patient weeps when telling about her sickness. This is one question from the last 19 days, and the second question which I come to is about this diarrhea only or usually at night. It is watery, greenish, yellow, very changeable soon as they eat. So as soon as they eat, they have to go to pass the stools. From fruits, cold foods or drinks and ice creams. Same we have another remedy which is arsenic and bryonia. If it happens from eating pears, veratrum and china. So diarrhea only at night. Dr. Poonam Homeopathy, you are telling about strontium calm, but that remedy is not there in the Allen's keynote. It's there in boric. Although I have discussed it, but there is another remedy which I have discussed in the last 19 days. So maybe you can catch up with those videos again. And Dr. Purvi has shared about weeps while narrating symptoms. Natramur possibly can be. Also, yeah, there is another remedy, medorinum. Good, nice. So Dr. Poonam, you have shared very correctly. Weeping when telling symptoms, medorinum is one of the most underused remedy, most ignored remedy. So in this way, when you know that these 4-5 remedies exist for these symptoms, your job becomes easier. Patient is just sharing about his complaints, crying. You have those 5 remedies. Your radar should go on those 5 remedies? Yes, Dr. Rishabh, you are also right. Meadow while narrating her symptoms. Your radar should focus on those 5-6 remedies and your job is easier. So whatever will be, when the emotions of the patients are coming out, and that time what your observations are, it is not an interpretation, it is a very direct and subtle observation. Think about those remedies which are indicated. You will be mostly successful in your prescription. So let's go further. Diarrhea from onions, thuja. Diarrhea from oysters, bromium and lyco. Diarrhea from milk, we have calcarea carb, natrum carb, nicolam, sulfur. Diarrhea from drinking impure water, camphora, gingiber. So there are a lot of diarrheas. Remember all these diarrheas, ailments from, these are going to be your causative modalities in your causative factors in your case taking, and it's going to help a lot in prescribing and healing the patient immediately. And try to preferably go for high potencies in first prescription, acute prescription like 1 m or 10 m with frequent repetition. Once you see the changes, taper of the medicine to 3 hourly or 4 hourly, something like that. Let's go further. In pulsatilla we have derangements at puberty, menses suppressed from getting the feet wet, too late, scanty, slimy, painful, irregular, intermittent flow with evening chilliness. So there is, you see this coming emerging pattern of chilliness with pains, chilliness with some symptoms here and there. Whichever will be the patient, whatever will be the pathology of the patient, if the patient needs pulsatilla, try to confirm whether they feel chilly at many times throughout the day or every few days. Chances are that they will share about this chilliness in one part or in different parts at different times. Think about pulsatilla that time. So there will be intense pain, restlessness and tossing about like the remedy MacPhos. Flow is more during the day. Again, one more remedy comes over here. If the flow is more on lying down, remedy is creosote. And if the first menstruation is delayed, this is very rarely seen right now. In fact, it's very early menstruation which we are having, and I feel that the same remedy can also be indicated for such cases where there is early menstruation, because if the remedy has a pole of delayed menstruation, it will also have a polarity of early menstruation. So it's like thinking out of the box and just applying the analogy. Applying the analogy is very important in homeopathy. This is going to open a lot of frontiers if you think it this way. Threatened abortion, flow ceases when and then returns with increased force, pains, spasmodic, excites, suffocation and fainting. Must have fresh air. This is very important. I was coming to it. Then we have the modalities. Aggravation in a warm closed room, evening, at twilight, the time between the sunset and the darkness which actually comes. On beginning to move, lying on left or on the painless side is aggravation for pulsatilla. Rich, fatty, indigestible food and warm applications and heat also aggravate, like the remedy Calimure. Amelioration in open air, lying on painful side and cool air or cold air or cold room. Eating or drinking cold things helps, like the remedy phosphorus we know. Cold applications like again Calimure. So we have Calimure or the Kali group of remedies, Kali Sulf for discharges, Calimure for modalities, very close enough with pulsatilla. And you have the remedy which is Lycopodium. If you go to Gibson and Miller's remedy comparison chart, you will see in Lycopodium he has mentioned pulsatilla is one of the complementary remedies which will either follow well or you can use it for the acutes also. In fact, most of the people who require Lycopodium as constitutional, they will require pulsatilla in acutes or vice versa also. Then we have Silesia, which is actually the chronic remedy for pulsatilla. And then the remedy sulfuric acid. It has many symptoms similar to pulsatilla, except that it is acid, and some symptoms which go as an extension from the psoric miasm to the syphilitic case, or there is destruction. Think about sulfuric acid, we'll cover that when we come to sulfuric acid. Kali mur is the chemical analog, and pulsatilla is one of the best medicines to begin the case, chronic case. It can be three remedies you can think of to start with in a chronic case: pulsatilla, calcarea carb, and sulfur. And if patient is coming to you after taking lot of iron tonics or malarial medicines or weight increasing tonics, etc., think about pulsatilla as the medicine. And then you have something that follows well pulsatilla, which is Kali bichromicum. Now you have to understand what is mentioned as a follow well. If you see Kali bichromicum has thick and greenish discharges. So it is an extension of what we saw in pulsatilla, which was, yellowish greenish discharge, but easily expectorating. In Kali bichromicum it is tough to expectorate. So if you have a patient who reports to you on the third or the fourth day of the complaints, he may have passed the pulsatilla stage and he may have landed in Kali bichromicum, Kali mur, or Kali sulf stage, which is actually the second stage of inflammation, I would say. So the onset, duration and progress of complaints need to be understood from the history, and then you need to prescribe the medicines. Then you have the remedy which follow well pulsatilla is lycopodium. I told you about it. Sepia, silica, and sulfur. These are the medicines. So we come to an end for day 19 of Alan's Keynotes study streak, and I hope it is helping you a lot. So let's see tomorrow, and maybe tomorrow is being a Sunday, and we may start a bit early, or maybe in the first part of the morning we'll have a session. So stay tuned in the stories and in the YouTube. If you are in the YouTube, watching in the YouTube, I will put out a notification about the time. I'll schedule a live so you can be notified about it. So that's all from me, and hope to see you all tomorrow, and stay inspired and keep inspiring.